Karen reported my ranch for theft. She didn't know I was the engineer who built the area. The sun hung low over the rolling hills of Karen Valley, casting a golden sheen across the sprawling fields of my ranch. The air carried the sweet scent of alfalfa and the distant hum of a tractor. I leaned against the weathered fence, my boots sinking into the soft earth, watching my herd of Angus cattle graze. This was my sanctuary, my life's work, a 200-acre dream carved from sweat, grit, and a decade of engineering know-how. But that morning, trouble rolled in on a cloud of dust and indignation, wearing yoga pants and a scowl. Her name was Karen. Karen had moved into the gated community on the valley's edge 6 months ago, her sleek SUV and manicured nails a stark contrast to the calloused hands and muddy boots of the locals. She'd been a thorn in everyone's side since day one, complaining about the smell of manure, the noise of roosters, even the way the sun reflected off Old Man Carter's barn. But today, she'd set her sights on me. I saw her marching across the field, phone in hand, her blonde bob bouncing with every furious step. Behind her trailed a lanky teenager, her son, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Excuse me," she bellowed, stopping a few feet from the fence. Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "Are you the owner of this cow farm?" I tipped my hat, keeping my tone calm. "Ranch, ma'am. And yes, I'm Jake Harmon, the owner. What can I do for you?" Her eyes narrowed, scanning the fields like a hawk sizing up prey. "I'm Karen Whitlock, president of the Valley Crest Homeowners Association. I've had it with your operation. You're stealing water from the community reservoir, and I have proof." She thrust her phone at me, displaying a blurry photo of my irrigation pipes. "These pipes are illegally tapped into our water supply. I've already reported you to the county, and they're sending an inspector tomorrow." I stifled a laugh, which only made her face redden. "Ma'am, those pipes are part of a system I designed myself. They're legal, permitted, and pull water from my own well. You're welcome to check the county records." "Don't patronize me," she snapped. "I know a scam when I see one. You ranchers think you can do whatever you want out here, but I'm putting a stop to it. You'll be fined, shut down, and probably arrested." She turned on her heel, dragging her son back toward her SUV. The kid glanced over his shoulder, mouthing a silent sorry before disappearing into the passenger seat. I shook my head, watching her peel out. Karen didn't know who she was dealing with. I wasn't just a rancher. I was the civil engineer who designed the entire water infrastructure for Karen Valley 15 years ago, back when it was nothing but scrubland and dreams. Every pipe, every well, every reservoir, she was standing on my work. And now she thought she could take me down? This was going to be interesting. By noon the next day, the county inspector, a wiry man named Tom with a clipboard and a no-nonsense attitude, showed up at my gate. Karen was right behind him, her arms crossed triumphantly. I invited them in, offering coffee, which Tom accepted and Karen declined with a sniff. We walked the property, Tom scribbling notes as I explained the irrigation setup. Karen interrupted every few sentences, tossing out accusations like confetti. "See? Those pipes are too big for a private well," she said, pointing at a main line. "He's siphoning our water to feed his cows." Tom raised an eyebrow, checking his schematics. "These match the permits filed in 2010, Ms. Whitlock. Designed by Jake Harmon." He glanced at me, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "You're that Jake Harmon? The engineer who built the valley's water system?" I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "One and the same." Karen's jaw tightened, but she doubled down. "That doesn't prove anything. He could have tampered with the system after the fact. I demand a full audit." Tom sighed, clearly used to her type. "Ma'am, an audit takes months, and there's no evidence of wrongdoing here. The pipes check out. The well's output matches the records. Unless you've got something concrete, I'm closing this case." Karen's face turned a shade of purple I hadn't seen since my old pickup's radiator blue. "This is outrageous. I'll escalate this to the state. You're all in on it, aren't you?" She stormed off, leaving Tom shaking his head. "Sorry about that, Jake," he said, handing me his card. "Call me if she causes more trouble." I pocketed the card, watching Karen's SUV disappear. I should have felt vindicated, but something gnawed at me. Karen wasn't just a nuisance, she was a wrecking ball, and I had a feeling she wouldn't stop until she broke something. I was right. That night, I got a call from my neighbor, Ellie, a retired schoolteacher who ran a small goat farm. Her voice was shaky. Jake, someone cut your south fence. Half your herds wandered onto my land. And well, Karen's here, filming it. She's saying you're trespassing and endangering her community. I cursed under my breath, grabbing my keys. By the time I reached Ellie's place, Karen was in full performance mode, live streaming to her HOA group. Her son, Ethan, stood off to the side, staring at the ground. A dozen neighbors had gathered, some nodding along with Karen, others looking skeptical. My cattle milled about, munching Ellie's grass like it was an all-you-can-eat buffet. See? This is what I'm talking about, Karen declared, panning her phone across the scene. This man's livestock are a menace. I'm calling animal control. I stepped forward, hands raised. Folks, let's calm down. The fence was cut deliberately. I'll round up my herd and fix it tonight. No need for animal control. Karen whirled on me. Don't try to spin this. You're negligent, and I'm making sure everyone knows it. Ellie, bless her, stepped in. Karen, you were out here an hour ago, inspecting the fence. Funny how it got cut right after that. The crowd murmured, and Karen's eyes widened. Are you accusing me? That's slander. I'll sue you. Before things could escalate further, Ethan spoke up, his voice barely audible. Mom, stop. All eyes turned to him. He shuffled forward, hands trembling. I saw you with the bolt cutters. You said it'd teach him a lesson. The air froze. Karen's face drained of color. Ethan, what are you saying? Don't lie. I'm not lying, he said, louder now, tears brimming. I'm tired of this. You're always picking fights, making everything worse. These people aren't hurting anyone. Just leave them alone. The neighbors went silent. Karen's phone slipped from her hand, the live stream cutting off. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I almost felt sorry for her almost. But Ethan's words hit harder than any comeback I could have thrown. This kid, caught in her chaos, had just thrown her a curveball she couldn't dodge. I cleared my throat. Let's focus on the cattle. I'll get them back. Ethan, you want to give me a hand? He nodded, wiping his eyes. The neighbors pitched in, too, herding the cows back through the gap, while Karen stood frozen. By midnight, the fence was patched, the herd secure. Ethan stayed, helping more than I expected. He was quiet, but his actions spoke of a kid trying to make amends for something he didn't start. The next week was strangely peaceful. Karen vanished from the HOA meetings, her SUV parked in her garage. I figured she was regrouping, plotting her next move. But then Ethan showed up at my ranch, alone, with a nervous smile. Can I help out again? He asked. I like the work. And I'm sorry about my mom. I handed him a pair of gloves. No apologies needed, kid. You did the right thing. As we worked, he opened up. Karen wasn't always like this, he said. Back in the city, she'd been a single mom, working long hours to keep them afloat. Moving here was supposed to be a fresh start, but she'd gotten obsessed with protecting their new life, seeing enemies where there were none. Ethan's stand that night had shaken her, but he wasn't sure if it'd change anything. I listened, nodding. Sometimes people get lost in their own battles. Doesn't mean they can't find their way back. Ethan smiled faintly, but I could see the weight he carried. He reminded me of myself at his age, caught between loyalty and truth. I decided to keep him around, teach him the ropes. The ranch could use someone with his grit. But Karen wasn't done. A month later, I got a letter from the state water board and official notice of a full-scale complaint, backed by anonymous evidence. Karen's name wasn't on it, but her fingerprints were. She'd escalated her war, pulling strings with some contact in Sacramento. The audit would take months, tying up my resources and threatening to bankrupt the ranch. I stared at the letter, my blood boiling. This wasn't just a nuisance anymore. It was personal. I called my lawyer, prepped my records, and braced for the fight. But as I walked the fields that evening, watching the sun dip below the hills, a bitter realization settled in. Karen wasn't fighting mesh, was fighting something deeper, something I couldn't fix. And Ethan, caught in the crossfire, was paying the price. The state water board's letter sat like a stone in my gut. Karen had gone nuclear, and the audit she'd triggered wasn't just a hecatomb, was a guillotine. Legal fees, inspections, and downtime could bleed the ranch dry. I spent sleepless nights poring over permits and schematics, my own designs mocking me from the pages. I'd built this valley's lifeblood, and now it was being used to choke me out. But I wasn't going down without a fight. Ethan kept showing up, his lanky frame a fixture at the ranch. He'd taken to the work like a duck to water, mending fences, feeding the herd, even cracking a smile when I taught him to drive the tractor. He didn't talk much about Karen, but I could see the strain in his eyes. One afternoon, as we hauled hay bales, he let slip that she'd been on the phone with lawyers, railing about justice. I nodded, keeping my anger in check. The kid didn't need my baggage on top of his own. The audit began in earnest a month later. Inspectors crawled over the ranch, measuring pipes, testing water flow, cross-referencing my well logs with county records. Karen made appearances, always at a distance, her SUV idling on the road as she watched like a vulture. The neighbors started taking sides. Some, like Ellie, rallied behind me, bringing casseroles and moral support. Others, swayed by Karen's HOA clout, whispered about shady ranchers and water theft. The valley, once a tight-knit haven, felt like a powder keg. Then came the second twist, one I never saw coming. Late one evening, as I was locking the barn, a beat-up sedan pulled into the drive. Out stepped a woman in her 50s, her hair streaked with gray, her face etched with exhaustion. She introduced herself as Linda, Karen's older sister, and asked to talk. We sat on the porch, the crickets filling the silence as she told me a story that turned my view of Karen upside down. Karen wasn't always like this, Linda said, her voice soft but heavy. We grew up dirt poor, sharing a mattress and a trailer. She clawed her way out, worked 3 jobs to put herself through college, raised Ethan alone after her ex bailed. But last year, she got scammed by a contractor in the city, lost most of her savings on a house that was falling apart. Moving here was her last shot at stability, and well, she sees threats everywhere now. I leaned back, processing. Karen, the terror of Karen Valley, was a woman haunted by betrayal. It didn't excuse her, but it explained her. Why tell me this? I asked. Linda sighed. Ethan called me. He's worried about her. She's obsessed with this fight, Jake. It's eating her alive. I'm not asking you to forgive her, but maybe find a way to end this before it destroys everyone. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to keep fighting, to crush Karen's crusade and prove her wrong. But Linda's words, and Ethan's quiet loyalty, stirred something else. The ranch wasn't just land, it was a legacy of solving problems, not starting wars. I thanked Linda and promised to think it over. The next day, I dug deeper, not into my records, but into Karen's complaint. I called Tom, the county inspector, and asked for the raw data she'd submitted. It was a mess: misinterpreted flow rates, doctored photos, and a forged signature from a consultant who didn't exist. Karen hadn't just escalated, she'd broken the law. I could have handed it to my lawyer and buried her, but something stopped me. Instead, I drove to her house. Karen answered the door, her face guarded. What do you want? She snapped. To talk, I said. No lawyers, no cameras. Just us. She hesitated, then let me in. Her living room was sterile, all beige furniture and motivational posters. Ethan was at school, and the silence felt oppressive. I laid out the evidence on her coffee table, her falsified documents, the holes in her claims. Her eyes widened, but she stayed quiet. You've got 2 choices, I said. Keep fighting, and I'll turn this over to the state. You'll lose everything: your reputation, your home, maybe even Ethan. Or you drop the complaint, and we call it even. Her lips trembled, but her voice was steel. You think you can intimidate me? I'm protecting my community. You're protecting a lie, I shot back. And it's hurting the one person who matters most to you. Ethan's tearing himself apart trying to fix your mess. That hit her like a slap. She sank onto the couch, her hands shaking. You don't know what it's like, she whispered. To lose everything, to fight for a place in the world. I do, I said, softer now. I built this valley's water system from nothing. I know what it's like to pour your soul into something and fear it'll be taken away. But this fight? It's not saving anything. She looked away, tears streaking her face. For the first time, I saw not the HOA tyrant, but a woman drowning in her own fear. I left the documents and walked out, hoping I'd reached her. 2 days later, the water board called. Karen had withdrawn her complaint, citing personal reasons. The audit was canceled, and the ranch was safe. I should have felt triumphant, but the victory was hollow. Ethan told me Karen had started therapy, thanks to Linda's prodding, but she was a ghost of herself, avoiding the neighbors, her SUV gathering dust. He kept working at the ranch, his bond with the land growing stronger, but I could see the pain he carried for his mother. Months passed, and the valley healed. The neighbors forgave Karen, some even reaching out with kindness. I invited her to the ranch's annual barbecue, hoping to bury the hatchet. She didn't come, but Ethan did, bringing a shy smile and a homemade pie from Linda. He was thriving, talking about studying agriculture in college. I was proud of him, but the shadow of Karen lingered. Then, one crisp autumn morning, it all unraveled. I was checking the herd when Ellie called, her voice frantic. "Jake, get to the reservoir now." I sped over, my heart pounding. The reservoir, the heart of the valley's water system, was a churning mess. Someone had sabotaged the main valve, flooding the fields and cutting off the community's supply. Inspectors swarmed the site, and whispers spread like wildfire. Karen's name was on everyone's lips. She'd been seen near the reservoir the night before, her SUV spotted by a neighbor. I found her at her house, packing boxes. Her face was ashen, her eyes hollow. "I didn't do it," she said before I could speak. "I swear, Jake. I was there, but only to say goodbye. I'm leaving the valley. I can't stay here." I wanted to believe her, but the evidence was damning. The sabotage was sloppy, the valve tampered with in a way that screamed desperation. The inspectors agreed it looked like a personal vendetta. Karen was arrested that afternoon, charged with vandalism and endangerment. Ethan watched, stone-faced, as they cuffed her. He didn't speak to me, didn't come back to the ranch. I tried calling, but he'd shut me out. The trial was swift. Karen pleaded guilty, claiming she'd acted alone to expose the system's flaws. Her story didn't add up, but the valley wanted closure, and she gave it to them. She was sentenced to 3 years, her house sold to cover damages. The valley moved on, but I couldn't. Something felt wrong. Late one night, I sat at my desk, staring at the reservoir's blueprints. The sabotage wasn't Karen's style, too reckless, too technical. I cross-checked the valve specs, then froze. The damage matched a rare tool, one I'd seen in my own barn. My blood ran cold. I drove to Ellie's, waking her to confirm a hunch. She'd seen Ethan near the reservoir that night, not Karen. He'd been carrying a toolbox. I confronted him the next day at Linda's, where he was staying. He broke down, sobbing. "I did it," he choked out. "I thought if I broke the system, they'd see Mom was right, that it was faulty. I didn't know it'd flood everything. I just wanted to help her." My heart shattered. Ethan, the kid I'd mentored, had betrayed me, the valley, and himself. Karen had taken the fall, protecting him one last time. I could have turned him in, but what good would it do? He was already broken. I told him to confess to Linda, to make amends however he could. I walked away, the ranch feeling emptier than ever. Karen's sacrifice haunted me. She'd been wrong, cruel, and reckless, but in the end, she'd chosen Ethan over her pride. I rebuilt the reservoir, stronger this time, but the valley's scars remained. Ethan left for college, carrying his guilt. I saw Linda occasionally, her eyes reflecting the same loss I felt. Karen wrote me once from prison, a single line. "Thank you for believing in him." I didn't write back. I couldn't. The ranch thrives now, but every sunrise feels bittersweet. I built this place to solve problems, to create life. But some problems fear, pride, love defy engineering. Karen, Ethan, and I were all architects of our own ruin, bound by choices we couldn't undo. What do you think? Was Karen a villain, a victim, or something in between? Did Jake do right by letting Ethan go? Share your thoughts. There's no easy answer here.